Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, and we're back. And I was about to say, and we're live, but no, this is recorded. What do you think of the new glasses, people? I'm going for the Harry Potter look. I'm going for the, what are we calling this one? The intellectual look. Let me just adjust these right here. Yeah, I'm going for the little intellectual thing. Got to take myself more seriously. I changed up the glasses. Got to do where's my wand? Where's my wand? If I had a wand, I could magic trick some stuff for West Indies cricket. But no, welcome back. My name is Machel St. Patrick here, one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. As you can see on the ticker tape below, people, follow the Caribbean Cricket Podcast at Carib Cricket on Twitter and Instagram. We're on the road to 6K. Thank you to everyone who's helped us reach 5K and beyond. I think last time I checked, we're on 5,120, I think, subscribers. So big up everybody who's been with us on the journey. Big up everybody who continues to join us on the journey at different points, and so on and so forth. This episode is supposed to be a quick one because it's just looking at the announcement of the squad for the second test against India. The second test begins in Port of Spain, Trinidad, in 2 days. 2 days, Thursday, the 20th of July. By the time you lot watch this, it's either the evening of the 18th of July or the morning of the 19th of July. So I'm recording this about, 1 day out, give or take, 1 day out from the start of the second test match. And the West Indies selectors have named one change for the second test. I'm just going to read out the press release, because I was just going to tell you, so Kevin Sinclair is in and Raymon Reifer is out. But I think it's always important to read a press release prior. That said, the press release is not on their website. So, of course, it's not on their website. This is West Indies we're talking about, people. Let me see if I can find that press release, people, because I always think it's important to give you the precise details of what the press release actually said so we can scrutinize it properly. Here we... What the Ross? Anyways, I can't. After all that, I don't even think I can find it. It's somehow miraculously disappeared from my email inbox. Let me just check the Carib Cricket one. What a video this is! You are watching me search for a video, which I cannot. Oh, I know I can't find it. You are watching me search for a video. Here we go. Finally found it, people. So. Here's a press release. Look at me, wasted 1 minute talking about trying to find an email. Right, so here we go. The Cricket West Indies senior men's selection panel today, which was yesterday, announced the squad for the second test match against India. The panel named 13 squad members and 2 travelling reserve players for the match, which will be played at Queen's Park Oval in Port of Spain, Trinidad, from the 20th to the 24th of July. Kevin Sinclair, the off-spinning all-rounder, has replaced Raymon Reifer in the squad. Reifer will, however, travel to Trinidad as cover in case of injury. Sinclair was among the leading players in the West Indies Championship 4-day first-class competition earlier this year. He also played a significant role with bat and ball in the recent West Indies A-team series win in Bangladesh. Overall, Sinclair has so far played 18 first-class matches with 54 wickets, including 3 5-wicket hauls, an average of 24. With the bat, he has scored 756 runs at an average of 29, which includes 6 half-centuries. So the full squad for the second test is Craig Brathwaite, captain, Jermaine Blackwood, vice-captain, Alec Athanaze, Tay Shandapur, Rakeem Cornwall, Josh Da Silva, Shannon Gabriel, Jason Holder, Alzari Joseph, Kurt McKenzie, Kimar Roach, Kevin Sinclair, Jamel Warrican, and the travelling reserves are Tevin Imlak, Akeem Jordan, and Raymon Reifer. So that's the squad, people. And the big talking point, obviously, for a lot of people is the fact, not so much that Kevin Sinclair's in. I think that's well-deserved based on what he did in the West Indies, as said in the press release, based on what he did in the West Indies Championship, based on with bat and ball, based on what he did in Bangladesh for West Indies A against Bangladesh A. he was also rewarded for some limited overs performances with a belated call up into the World Cup squad after Yannick Karai got injured, etc. So I've got nothing against Kevin Sinclair being called up into the Test squad. It was going to happen sooner or later anyway. It's a very interesting decision, however, to replace Raymon Reifer, who is in the squad as a number 3 bat, with Kevin Sinclair, who is at the very best in international cricket, a number 8 batter, probably at this stage of his career. And he's certainly a bowling all-rounder rather than a batting all-rounder. So it's a very interesting decision to replace a batter with a bowling all-rounder who, if he plays, will surely play at number 8 or something like that. But we'll get into the ramifications and the whys and the where nots, etc. in a minute. The first thing I want to unpick, because I've got 4 different talking points to get through. The first thing I really want to unpick is Reifer's drop. So since Raymon Reifer was called into the squad at the expense of Nkrumah Bonner in Zimbabwe, and before that, people have to remember that Reifer had already played, I think, 2 test matches, one against New Zealand when Jason Holder was injured, and again, similarly against Bangladesh, I think in 2022 at home. Yeah, at home against Bangladesh, he played some test matches, as well as, again, similarly, Jason Holder wasn't involved. But this proper test match run for Raymon Reifer started in the Zimbabwe series earlier this year. So Raymon Reifer effectively has played 5 test matches since, I don't want to say debuting versus Zimbabwe, but certainly being called into the West Indies test squad as a number 3. And these are his scores at number 3. First test versus Zimbabwe, 2 and 58. Second test Zimbabwe, 53. Didn't bat in the second innings. South Africa first test, 62 and 8. South Africa second test, 15 and duck. India first test, 2 and 11. And now he's dropped. And not just dropped as in he's in the squad, but dropped. He's just out. He just dropped. Yes, they've said he's travelled as injury cover, but he just dropped. He's out. He's finished now. So at the time of Raymon Reifer being dropped from the West Indies Test match squad, he leaves the West Indies Test match squad with a international average of 22. Now, I hasten to add that 20 or 23 even, I hasten to add that 23 is largely, has to include also those 2 test matches, 3 test matches he played earlier in his career, 1 in New Zealand in 2017 and 2 at home against Bangladesh in 2022. So in some senses, you could say, that average is a bit of a misnomer, because up until the South Africa series, at the end of that first test against South Africa, after he'd scored 62 and 8, Reifer had got his average up to 30. His average, having now completed the test against India, first test against India, is now down at 23. So in effect, you could say that West Indies had a all-rounder, because that's what Raymon Reifer is. They had an all-rounder batting at number 3, and he departs the West Indies test team with an average of 23. If you're sitting there listening to this thinking, how on earth did West Indies end up with an all-rounder batting at number 3 with a test match average of 23? You have to ask the selectors that question, because I'm wondering the same thing, right? But more importantly, when I started breaking it down, I was like, right, so Nkrumah Bonner was dropped. Let's go over this again. Nkrumah Bonner was dropped after the Australia series. At the time that Nkrumah Bonner was dropped, Nkrumah Bonner averaged 38. And we were given all kinds of explanations about Bonner isn't seeing it well, and we're worried about Bonner versus high pace, and he's been licked down twice, and concussion, and this, that. Bonner dropped. West Indies got themselves to a point where they dropped Nkrumah Bonner with a test match average of 38. Yes, I know he bats slow. Yes, I know he loves to soak up balls. These I went and looked back at it again. These were Nkrumah Bonner's last 5 test matches, similar to Reifer's last 5. I'm going to use a similar sample size. First test versus England, 123 and 38 not out. Second test versus England, 9 and 3. Third test versus England, 4 and then did not bat. First test versus Bangladesh, 33 duck. Second test Bangladesh, duck, did not bat. First test versus Australia, 16 not out, concussion. We've never seen him since. But now you could say, oh, but Mash, that run was a bit terrible. He flopped in the second test versus England, flopped in the first test versus Bangladesh, and then Australia 16 not out, concussion. Nkrumah Bonner got dropped from the West Indies test side with an average of 38. In that average of 38, Nkrumah Bonner had 2 test match centuries, and he had 1, 2, 3 scores. So 3 test match 50s and 2 test match centuries in 25 innings played with an average of 38. And we dropped him. We dropped him for Raymon Reifer, who came in for 5 test matches, and Reifer himself has now been dropped. If you're sitting there asking yourself the following question, then you're in the same boat as me. And that question, my friends, is, so what was the point of dropping Bonner for Reifer? What was achieved? So Reifer hit 3 50s, 2 against Zimbabwe, 1 against South Africa. Then he scores an 8-15, duck to 11, dropped, never to be seen again. Raymon Reifer will never play for West Indies again. I don't see how he gets back in the side now. So, and do you know what? In some ways, in some senses, I think it's harsh on Raymon Reifer. Because if you call a man in and he scores 58, 53, 62 in 3 consecutive innings, 2 against Zim, 1 against South Africa, then fails in 5 consecutive innings, and then you drop him, was that, and I'm just asking you lot, the listeners, was that enough of a sample size to say that we truly saw the best of Raymon Reifer, or we truly could assess whether Raymon Reifer deserves a spot in the West Indies side going forward? Bear in mind, my question is different to what you probably think I'm asking you. I'm not asking you, is Raymon Reifer good enough? The answer to that's no, by the way. I'm not asking you that. What I'm saying is, did he get a fair run and sample size before kicking him out the squad? Okay. He effectively had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 innings before he was dashed away. Nkrumah Bonner had 25 innings, had an average of 38, 200s and 350s, and then got dashed out. What's the metric? I'm asking everyone, what's the metric here? Why did we drop Bonner in the first place if Reifer was going to get dashed out after 9 innings? And if Reifer has now been dashed out, why has he not been replaced with another frontline batter? I went back and looked at the 18-man squad, training squad, that was called up to get ready for the India series prior to the selection of the first test match squad, right? I said to myself, who are the other batters that were in that squad that you could actually go back and say, well, you were in the training squad, you're going to replace Raymon Reifer? And there were 2 names. Nkrumah Bonner was in that training squad, and Kavem Hodge was in that training squad. I'm not saying that I would have given Kavem Hodge the nod, but I'm just saying those are the batters who are in the squad. Darren Bravo, for some reason, was not in that squad, despite being the second highest run scorer in the recently completed West Indies Championship. So what I'm saying to you lot, the listener, is if they've made the decision to drop Reifer, why is Bonner not back in? Why or where is Darren Bravo? If you could call Alec Athanaze up to the West Indies Test match squad because he was the top run scorer in the West Indies Championship, as well as having a good run of form from Super 50, Darren Bravo also did the exact same thing as Alec Athanaze. Where's Darren Bravo? If you're dropping a number 3 bat, where's the other number 3 bat to replace him in the squad? I'll get to Kevin Sinclair in a minute because I can see a tactical reason why they've done what they've done. But first, let's just look at it as you've dropped a number 3 batter. Where's the number 3 batter to replace him? Obviously, it's going to be Kurt, but we'll get to that. Where's Darren Bravo? No, seriously, where is Darren Bravo? What was the point of Bravo scoring all those runs in the West Indies Championship? What was the point of Bravo scoring all those runs in the Super 50? What is the point in having a batter in the region with 8 test match centuries, 17 test match 50s, your second highest run scorer in the domestic championship, and he can't get a look in? But you had Raymon Reifer play 9 test match innings for what? You dropped a man in Bonner with a test match average of 38 for what? And now we have no test match number 3. As things stand, as we gear up towards the second test versus India, it looks like Kurt McKenzie is going to be the new test match number 3. And I'm not fighting Kurt McKenzie down. Obviously, he scored runs for West Indies Academy, scored some runs against Bangladesh A for West Indies A. But Kurt McKenzie has effectively gone from being hardly in the Jamaica Scorpion setup, In 6 months, Kurt McKenzie has gone from hardly being in the Jamaica Scorpions setup, and in terms of being a permanent fixture, to probably more than likely making his debut for the West Indies at number 3. Does that make sense to you lot? And I know some of you will get in the comments and you'll be like, Mash, he scored a double century in Headley versus Weeks, and he scored a 9-shot for West Indies A versus Bangladesh A. Does it make sense for a man to jump from that to playing against the number 1 team in the world? I'm all for promoting youths. I get it. He's 22. He's talented. I'm all for promoting the youths. This is India we're talking about. We're going to make the man debut now in Trinidad. But you had Nkrumah Bonner in the training squad. Man's got a test match average of 38. Bravo's got a test match average of 36, 37. Where? Oh, God. So that's issue number 1. Issue number 2, let's look at Kevin Sinclair. Why did they turn to Kevin Sinclair as a replacement? I think firstly we got to let's deal with the misnomer first and foremost. Sinclair is not a direct replacement for Reifer. Obviously, you shouldn't have to have any cricketing sense to know it's not a direct player for player swap. You have to assume that Kevin Sinclair is being called up as cover for Akeem Cornwall. You have to just assume that, right? The natural inclination would say that is why Kevin Sinclair is in the squad, that they're worried that Rakeem Cornwall's chest infection or congestion in his chest may not clear up in time for the second test for him to be 100% and get through 2 innings of bowling. If injury even have to bat twice, they may be worried that Rakeem Cornwall can man that workload. Remember that when Rakeem Cornwall came back onto the pitch in the first test, he bowled 5 more overs before injury declared. So they may be wondering, even if Rakeem's chest infection clears up, do they trust him to get through an entire innings of bowling? So I think Kevin Sinclair is there as cover for Rakeem Cornwall, which would mean that Kurt McKenzie, they have decided, is the natural replacement for Raymon Reifer should they want a new number 3 bat. The question, again, people watching this have to ask themselves is, should Kevin Sinclair only be in the squad as injury cover for Akeem Cornwall, or do people have Kevin Sinclair walking straight into the squad? I don't foresee a situation where they play Cornwall and Sinclair. They may not even play 2 spinners. Obviously, it all depends on what the conditions are in Trinidad. It may even be that they've called Kevin Sinclair up because they're expecting Trinidad to spin and they're expecting to have to play 3 spinners. And if that's the case, then Kurt McKenzie's not playing. It means that everyone's moving up 1 in the order. Blackwood will bat 3, Athanaze will bat 4, De Silva will bat 5, Holder will bat 6, Sinclair or Cornwall at 7, and then Sinclair or Cornwall at 8. That surely can't be the team. But if they suspect that Trinidad wicket is going to take significant spin, then I guess all the spinners are playing. So that's just something to consider. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but it's just something to consider. So in terms of looking at the squad, I think there's 3 different ways this goes. The most likely setup for the West Indies squad versus India in the second test is that Kurt McKenzie comes in. So I'm going to give you 3 different potentials. And in the comments below, let me know in the comments which one of the 3 squads you would pick. Squad 1, Reifer's out, McKenzie's in, and that's it. And it's the exact same team again. So it would be Craig and Tage, Kurt McKenzie at 3, although Blackwood should probably bat ahead of him based on experience. So McKenzie at 3. But remember, people, for those who don't know the domestic game properly, McKenzie is actually an opening bat. So that might be why McKenzie goes 3. Kirk 3, Blackwood 4, Athanaze 5, Josh 6, Jason 7, Rakeem 8, Alzari 9, Roach 10, Warwick 11. That's squad 1. Squad 2 is that Kirk comes in for Reifer and Warwick goes out for Shannon Gabriel. So in that squad, it's the exact same order, but just with Shannon Gabriel at number 11. The only reason that would be the squad is if they look at that Trinidad pitch in Port of Spain and say, well, boy, yeah, it'll take a bit of spin, but not enough spin to justify playing 2 spinners. Rakeem Cornwall will be the number 1 spinner because he is the number 1 spinner in that squad. And where we think that Port of Spain will take a bit more pace and a bit more bounce and a bit more carry through. So we'll put Shannon Gabriel in to bang it in hard and try threaten the Indian batters with some plus 90 bowling. That's squad 2. Squad 3 is that they look at the pitch in Trinidad and they say, boy, it's going to take spin. And that's when I think I said this team earlier on. So in that squad, Kirk doesn't play. It's Kevin Sinclair that actually comes in and everybody moves up one. So then you have Craig and Tage, Blackwood 3, Athanase 4, Josh 5, Holder 6, probably Sinclair 7, Cornwall 8, Joseph 9, Roach 10, Warwick 11. That's if you think that they want 3 spinners in the side. I find that highly unlikely, but that's the only way. So that's squad 3. That's possibly what they're thinking in terms of getting Sinclair into squad. And then squad 4, I don't know if did I say this is my first squad? Squad 4 is that they don't think that Cornwall's going to make it. And that they think that the chest infection that he picked up in the first test is actually going to hamper him being able to bowl the allocation of bowling they want him to bowl in the second test, so they don't pick Cornwall. If that's the case, then again, Kirk's still at number 3, but all that happens with the squad is that Raheem drops out, Kevin Sinclair replaces Raheem, and then it's simply between Warwick and Gabriel for that last spot. So those are the 4 different kind of permutations West Indies could go in to the second test with. Like I said at the top of the show, a lot of question marks about why they've dropped Raymon Reifer now. I'd love to know what was the turning point. What was the turning point that made them say, yeah, now is the time that we've realized that Raymon Reifer isn't good enough to bat number 3 for West Indies. Most of the rest of us in the Caribbean who actually understand cricket, we decided that before Raymon Reifer had even made his debut at number 3. So I would love to know what suddenly made the selectors go, yeah, Raymon Reifer shouldn't bat at number 3. That in itself makes me question the selectors. Why now? Why now? What was the difference maker now that suddenly made you think he's not a test match number 3? And what's the plan going forward now? Say, and I was about to end the video, but let me just put this last conundrum to the West Indies fans. Say Kurt McKenzie comes in and it's a baptism of fire. He struggles versus India in the second test. But then remember, we got no more test matches now till Australia at the start of 2024. So then they take Kurt McKenzie to Australia. So you go from playing in India to then playing Australia away. And Kirk struggles again. We then have no more test matches till we have to go to England in the summer because Pakistan have just reneged on the test we were supposed to play in Feb. Are you still carrying Kirk to England then? So Kirk would have, for his first 3 games as a West Indies test match number 3, he would have to play India, Australia away, then England away. At that point in England, if Kirk has struggled massively, having been given this chance to play as a test match number 3, who comes in then after that? Bonner will be 35 by then. Bravo will be 34, turning 35. You've got Brandon King who will be 20. Like, what's the plan then? What's the plan then? And this goes back to my original point. Why have they only realized that Reifer wasn't a test match number 3 now? As ever with West Indies cricket, it's never a dull day. There's always a bunch of questions. There's always things that don't make any sense. This is just a little quick video looking at the prep and the squad ahead of the India second test match. If anyone's wondering, so Mash, what do you think is going to happen? We're going to lose. Obviously, we will lose that second test match. But I think most West Indian observers would just accept us being more competitive. That was the only shock in the first test, that we weren't even marginally competitive. In the second test, all we want to see is some competitive cricket. I've been Machel St. Patrick here at one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Thank you and good night.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.